join us? Sorry, I thought Jennifer said she was here. Okay.
No, I think we have Beth, and I think Disha is logging on right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to hurriedly finalize details. We've got a group ride on the Greenway tomorrow with the McDowell County schools, the 4th and 5th graders, because they took the Let's Go Biking, this year.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be like a group ride. And we've got different schools scheduled at different times throughout the day.
Oh, wow. How many schools?
Well, we've got 4 slots, so for the elementary schools. And then towards the end, we opened it up, to anybody. So we'll see who shows up.
That's great. Is it going to be really hilly where you're biking?
No, it's it's ADA compliant, so it only has a certain amount of slope to it.
Good. That's good.
And it's right along the river. It's a beautiful, beautiful little greenway.
I think tomorrow's going to be a little bit cooler.
Morning.
Hi there.
Good morning.
Hey, this is Mary B. Sounds like Mary and Colleen are on the phone.
Yeah.
There are others of us on the phone too.
I hear you. I hear you, Nancy.
Well, I think Beth is here and Disha.
Good morning, it's George.
So Nancy, hey George. Nancy, I just wanted.
Yes, Mary.
I have a hard stop. Probably about 9:55. I'll be jumping off.
Yeah.
We're doing the closing on our house today.
Yay.
Oh, exciting.
Yay.
It is
You mean the house
exciting.
that you're selling?
Yes.
Okay. You've had quite the week.
Yeah.
Well, great. I'm going to give us one more minute, gang. Oh, I know. Jennifer Delcourt, actually, this is why she's on my mind. She told me she was going to be joining a little bit late. But I told her to feel free to hop on. She was worried that it would be disruptive for her to add in, and I said, no, we want you. And Jackie is out of the country. So let's see here. We have 2, 3, 4.
We have George is on the line.
Yep.
Yeah. George is 4.
This is Leah, just joined.
Hey.
And we have Beth as well. Hey, Leah.
Right.
And Disha. Hey, Disha.
Well, let's just go ahead and get started because this really is meant to be a conversation. So as other people add in, that should not be a problem at all. This really is a time for all of us to exchange ideas and talk a little bit about what we heard and things like that. So I don't have a formal agenda other than just maybe some questions to get us going. But just to review, the purpose of the call is to debrief about what we heard on the Beyond Our Borders webinar a couple weeks ago, where we had coordinators from Massachusetts, South Carolina, and Georgia tell us a little bit more about how their programs are set up and what they're doing to address sustainability. And oh my gosh, I thought it was awesome. It was just amazing to hear the number of schools they have involved and the structure used. I thought all of that was great fun. So I'm assuming part of our conversation today will be around like which pieces of that might be translatable here in North Carolina to the way we have active growth of school structured, and kind of kicking those ideas around. So I do want to be sure that everybody knows who's on the call. And if it's okay, I'm going to say your names, and then you let me know if I missed you. Mary, or actually, you know what? Since Disha is on the call, and she probably has not heard everybody's voices yet, let's introduce ourselves, if you would. And we're just going to go in numbered order by region if that doesn't sound too conformist to you. Jackie is out of the country, so she is not here, but region 2, Miss Mary.
Yeah, this is Mary Smith.
And Beth Johnson, Region 3. Hey again. We had the pleasure of meeting in Concord.
Nice.
And George Berger, Region 4. We talked yesterday on the phone.
And Jennifer is going to be joining a little bit late. So Disha, that puts you next.
Disha it looks like she just logged off. She might be having technical problems.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, shoot, here we are introducing ourselves. Though it sounds like, I mean, I'm impressed by the fact that 2 out of 3 of the coordinators thus far have already connected with her. So that is very nice. And the ones, of course, that are bordering some of her areas. Okay, and then let's see here. Who else do we have? Leah?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, trying to unmute.
Oh, thank you. I haven't heard from Dominique, I don't think. And Taylor, Nicole. Nope. Okay.
Hello.
And then we've got, hey, oh, Disha, good, you're back.
Sorry, I had it on my phone, so that way I thought it would be better, but it was not working on my cell phone, so I had to buzz back in on the office phone so I could talk. No one heard me talking. I'm sorry.
Well, we can hear you now.
Okay, great.
So Mary Beth, George, Disha, Leah, and I don't think Nicole or Dominique are on yet, and not sure if they're going to join us today or not. Because when we use GoToMeeting, of course, y'all don't have to register. So, which I think is a benefit. Also means we're not sure exactly who's on the call until we jump on. And then Mary B. and Colleen and Nancy are here. So on that, gang, let's just jump right into things. What were your reactions to the webinar and what you heard?
Well, I, for one, was really, this is Mary, I was kind of interested in their kits because I know they had a golden sneaker kit, and I noticed they had, walk across America, walk across Massachusetts. So I was kind of interested in those. I see a bike rodeo kit, because I'm trying to figure out, what can I package so that I can just, send it out and, have those kind of resources all packed up in a neat little presentation piece or something. So I was interested in looking at those.
Yeah, that was one of the things that oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, George. This is Disha, and to go along with what Mary said, that's what I talked to Mary B. and Nancy about yesterday. I was asking, did we have, the encouragement kits? Is it something that we all wanted to do together, or were people doing them separately?
Yep, great question. George, do you want to throw in what you were going to say, and then?
Yeah, sure. I thought that one of the main takeaways that I had from this particular webinar was that, in addition to the fact that pretty much all 3 of the states were relatively similar in the way that they broke things out regionally, they're all smaller states, even Georgia, than us, but that they did do a lot with what Mary's talking about. So maybe not necessarily as much direct hand-holding with individual schools like a lot of us tend to do, but they provide more of a statewide research center or resource center, approach where they might drop in as called or as asked for or whatever, do either a fairly intensive amount of work with a school or not, and then they leave them with sort of packaged programming that might seem to be more of an easier way to do it with fewer people or fewer resources. I'm not exactly sure, but that seems like the way that it was kind of, I don't know. I was just wondering if anybody else kind of gathered that thought. And maybe, Nancy, you can be the best person to answer that because you probably have worked with all of them.
Well, certainly one thing for you to know is that those states did, I think Massachusetts was the first one to set up the partner level. And then
Right.
the Georgia program and the South Carolina program are run by the same people.
Right.
Right. So it's not, I don't want y'all to think like 49 other states in D.C. are all doing this particular structure. It's just something I
Well, it
didn't
seemed like
think
a
about.
good structure, actually. I mean, you know, because realistically, I mean, one of the reasons why we were hoping to have this discussion, this webinar, to hear from what other states were doing is because we know that our grant program is going to end one way or another. And so we need to, if we're thinking about sustainability of the programming as opposed to thinking just strictly about sustainability of positions and whatnot, then trying to set up some sort of a structure across the regions or whatever that might allow for additional continuity after we've gone or done whatever.
Right.
And two, you got to ask, okay, is the walkbiketoschool.org, is that basically already our, you know, our resource page? Because I was thinking, okay, we need to create this, and then I found myself going to that site and thinking, well, shoot, you know, should we would we be duplicating, or should we just, you know, try to steer people to that site because it's, you know, created there? So that's a question that I evolved to in the last couple of weeks.
And that goes back to the whole idea of the partnership level strategy, because I do just like what you do, Mary. I steer a lot of people to walkbiketoschool.org for a lot of different resources.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't specifically, so I don't have to, and we don't have to create them, which is cool. So the one thing I would be kind of interested in doing, or at least looking at, is seeing whether there's a need, or maybe just a repackaging, I guess, of a lot of the walkbiketoschool.org resources so that it ends up where we have something either similar to the partnership level structure, or we have another way of sort of framing or organizing the resources that are on the current website so that it ends up with that. It's like if you want to be at this level, you should take a look at these things. If you want to be at this other level, you should maybe be looking at more of these things, at least to get started with, and then you move up. So it's maybe less formal, but it still provides a lot of the same resources and guidance.
Right, right. And maybe also the underlying message there is, here's what schools are doing. So it sets a little bit of a expectation, like here's some options to choose from that other schools are doing.
Right. So one thing, and I'm sorry to be dominating at least part of the conversation, but one thing Jen Delcourt and I have talked about, and I think she's talked about this same thing with a number of other folks, is we've put into our work plan for the coming year the idea of providing a webinar that's archivable. So the main structure, the main concept is, so you've done a walk to school day, what's next? And trying to get a number of North Carolina best practices for a number of different things, so that it becomes okay, here's how schools or communities have done X, Y, and Z after they've put their feet in the water, put their toes in the water, so that it can then go up on a state web page, you know, our state's web page, and people could look at it and see actual people doing actual things. So I'm not sure who all Jen's talked to altogether, but at least we want to try to provide that approach, which, you know, is getting toward a state set of guidance or tools or whatever. Maybe part of that webinar would be, okay, this is where you go for a lot of these resources, so you too can do this.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I had
also,
I had those thoughts of, you know, like the last year of the grant to really basically, you know, invest some time into cataloging what we've done and setting it up so that, you know, we'd have resources to be referred to, you know, and then that would be sort of be a state level thing and work collectively together to put together things, you know, maybe around bike rodeos, bicycle programs in the school, and, you know, showcase our examples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do think there's such value in having North Carolina examples of some of these things, because I think that's what differentiates it from what might be on Walk Bike to School that sort of anybody could find, right? But sort of packaging and organizing it and saying, this is how North Carolina is doing it. And so just to be sure y'all know, I sent out an email asking for recommendations. If you had walking school bus programs in your region or any before school walking programs.
Is it only walking that you asked for? I mean, is it only walking that you're interested in, I guess, is really, because we've got a really good bike to school program in one of our schools that is going to be, I think, a national level model. And we're putting together a 2 or 3 page info sheet on it now, and if you're interested in that, it's only once a week, but they do it every week, and it wouldn't be hard to do it every day if they wanted to.
What we just briefly, I mean, and that sounds like that might be awesome. No, it doesn't have to just be walking. Certainly, biking as well, or biking exclusively is great too. What we're trying to marry together is the evidence that is out there about how programs like walking school buses or before school walking can help get kids to school on time and more regularly. So what we're trying to do is angle this towards things that might really build buy-in among school administrators who care about attendance. That is a priority for them. So being able to say to them, here's what we know about the relationship between those two things, and then here are examples of North Carolina communities that are doing these programs. Now, I'm not saying that North Carolina communities are collecting attendance data. I don't know of any of those. So we're getting national examples for that part.
Didn't somebody on the webinar last week, or some conversation I remember, was where someone said, no, hold on, this was in my bike to school program thing. I mean, this bike to school day thing. One of the kids, this is just an anecdote, but one of the kids whose birthday it was, I think it was 3 Fridays ago or 2 Fridays ago, was going to not go to school because they had given the kid a gift of going to Carowinds, which of course is the big theme park around here. And he told his parents, no, I don't want to do it because I want to go to Bike Friday. So it's like he basically skipped going to the theme park for the day so he could bike to school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great story.
So I'll get that
quote.
I'll dig it up. It was on Facebook. I remember who put it up there now. So anyway.
Thank you. But as I think about what you were talking about doing a webinar, I want to be sure these pieces kind of work together too. Something else that we're going to be doing, HSRC is going to be doing as part of our work for Active Routes to School, is developing a quarterly newsletter for y'all to be able to send out to your partners. Yay! And part of that will include success stories. And we will be looking to each of you to make recommendations about what you'd like to feature. But again, just telling you, because I'm thinking, George, about that webinar too, that will be either something that you can point to or something that we should be working together on, so we're not all telling the same story. Doesn't mean we can't point to some of the same stuff. Yeah. Okay, well, let's jump back, and Disha asked a question about, hey, are there coordinators who want to create these encouragement kits? Should we join together and figure out what would be in the kits and you know, combine our resources so we can get a better deal? Just like when y'all order things from Far From Boring, you know, the more you order, the cheaper the per item cost is. Are there folks who are interested in doing that?
Yeah, this is Leah, and I'm interested in doing that. I liked how they had that uniform idea across the state. I thought it would also help with sustainability, because these kits, you know, they may be left with schools that are very active and will use it every year, but it could also be something that would be left with the health department or the Safe Kids Coalition or something like that. So if we're not, like George was saying, they're not all dependent on the coordinators, or now they don't have an excuse to be so dependent on the coordinators.
And this is Beth. I think it just speaks to sustainability after Active Route to School. It's just another tool for them to, like Leah just said, the health department or whoever is best fit in that county or that community to kind of take that and just keep going.
Yeah, maybe one of the things could be to, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead, George. I was just going to say, because we talked about this before, this could be a piece of that sustainability kind of action plan book that we talked about a while ago that I had brought up, could be included in that.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that we could be doing in terms of the kit approach is to get what's in the kits, you know, the golden shoe kit, the this or that kit that some of the other states have, to get those formal items and how much and I mean how many of them or whatever, what they put in them and for what. And then let's take that information and say, okay, those are things we can put together both as Active Routes to School coordinators, but in the future other people or other agencies or whatever can do it as well. And then take it the next level and say, okay, so what would be in a kit that would go to a school that nobody had ever talked to before? So the initial enthusiasm kit or encouragement kit or whatever. And so we have not only the ones where we are thinking that a school or a town or whatever is going to be an active partner, but getting something put together for the very, very most basic introductory thing too. That way we've got the list of resources and even potentially where to get the items or how to have them made or printed or whatever.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And looking back, that makes me think of what, George, what you were saying. One of the things I know Stephanie and I did when we developed that tool.
I'm looking at it right now.
One of the things that, why can I not remember her name? I said Stephanie and then went completely blank on Region 10. What? No, Taylor. Taylor. Yeah. That we want to update that. So having some information, like maybe if we kind of had a small group, and I know Jennifer has one in her region too, and updated it more so in a collaborative effort so that it can be applied and appropriate for use across the state.
Because that ends up getting us to a statewide consistency, you know, because that toolkit for Region 9 and 10 was great, and if Jennifer's got one, that's Region 5. If we expanded and updated all of that into one statewide toolkit that also includes at least a list of, you know, here's your golden shoe package, and then this is what's in it, and this is basically how the program works. This is your your walking school bus thing, and includes the how to start a walk or bike to school day event in it as well. There's a lot of resources that then can be centrally updatable however it needs to be, or from whomever it needs to be done.
Yes. And if we had that tier system like the other states had, that could kind of like, that could be one way to like each page could be labeled like this would be a gold level activity
Right.
or bronze level activity. So it sounds like we just need to start working.
Yeah.
So would it help? Would it help if because one of the other questions I wanted to ask this group, so timing is good, is whether there are any questions that you want me to reach back and ask the presenters about. So do you want me to ask Erin in Massachusetts about what was in her different kits?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I looked on there, and there were a couple I couldn't really find. I think the Walk Across Massachusetts, Walk Across America, I didn't see those anywhere. I couldn't find them anyway.
Yes, and even if they could do, like, I'm thinking about the bike rodeo kit in particular, like, if they had, like, an inventory of what the items are, where they ordered them from would be useful and could save time on our end.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, specifically about Erin, I actually met her at the APBP Professional Development Seminar like 3 years ago, whenever the last one was. And she and I have emailed 3 or 4 times over the course of the past couple of years. So she's great to work with. Don't hesitate to reach out directly to her if any of us need anything from them. She's been awesome.
Well, George, would you rather reach out to Erin? I'm not trying
I don't
to
mind.
dominate
No,
that
not a bit.
opportunity by any
I don't
means.
care.
Okay.
Actually, I'd be happy to do it, but it might be better for you to do it simply because you are kind of at the crux of all of us rather than just me, and I might ask a question, or I might forget to ask a question, actually. But I'd be happy to do it if you need it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you could email her and just say, hey, all of us coordinators talked, and so I'm here representing everybody.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I'll do it when we get off the phone.
Yeah, another thing that I thought was interesting about the webinar was how several of them saying they don't do, like, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, like direct outreach. The schools come to them, it sounded like, at this point in the stage, and how can we make that happen? Because now I'm kind of, I don't know if y'all are experiencing the same thing, but I've kind of done my outreach multiple times, and some schools just are not interested anymore. So how do I get them to come to me? I don't know how they manage that, but maybe it's that tier system that they do for the gold, bronze, and that.
Well, you know,
I was kind of
talking
interested
about
in that.
Talk about that, Leah. You know, I have a question. Is, you know, you reach a point where you have so many schools that you're interacting with, then, okay, what do you do? Are you going to look for more and more, spend a whole chunk of time of going and trying to establish visits with other schools, or do you devote your time on creating more depth of programming in, say, all these 30 schools that you're now working with? That's a question I have.
Mm-hmm. So this is Mary B, and I'd like to weigh in on that. I think that's a really great comment, Mary. So from a state perspective, I think what we would really hope for is that you do a little bit of both. So you do the depth, you know, you take them from the walk or bike to school day event to a more sustainable ongoing program, but that you're very thoughtful in the schools that you target. So, you know, really thinking about those super low resource schools, you know, and yes, you know, maybe targeting just a few of them or a county, and I'm gonna pick on Disha, like Anson, that's just, it's a troubled county. They have, you know, to find one or two schools that really need the extra time and attention, because I think from an equity standpoint, that would be what we would be looking for, and success stories in those would really promote the program in a really positive way.
And one of the other things I think is an interesting dynamic about that is that, so there have been some schools that I've worked with that have been kind of right on the edge of a very low resource, low income county. And some of the students, or some of the families, I guess, that live in the county that I don't have a whole lot of interaction with because they haven't really been interested, have now started hearing about some of the successes that we've been having in a county that I work fairly extensively with. And so the depth of programming that I've been able to provide to one county's schools, or some of them, where they are interested, has made it possible so that an adjacent county has said, maybe this is something that we ought to think about too. And so it's almost like I think that both approach kind of feeds on itself. So the depth that you're providing in one maybe allows you to jump into some more breadth in another county or in another district or whatever.
Okay. Jennifer, I think you joined us.
I did, yeah, sorry, I'm late.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit.
Okay.
But just wondered if there was anything that you either wanted to add to the current conversation, or anything else that you had a reaction to on the webinar that you wanted to hash out with your colleagues. We've been talking a lot about the encouragement kits and about the partner level structure and the opportunities to help build sustainability for active routes to school using some of those.
Yeah. So I'm really sad I missed the first part because I'm sure you guys had a lot of great insights. My reaction was kind of, some of the things they were talking about were things that over the last couple of years I'm like, gee, I wish that we could do this, or I wish that I could do that. But I felt like things like the tier levels, I didn't feel like that was something that I could do on my own in one active routes to school region, even though I think it's a very interesting model. And it's kind of similar to what Alliance for a Healthier Generation does. But even with that model, I've seen with Alliance that schools drop off after they stop getting one-on-one assistance. It seems to me anyway. But it seems that the folks like in Massachusetts, were having more success with that and keeping schools in the fold once they got there. But I definitely like the toolkit. I think again it was Massachusetts that mentioned one that they're creating right now, a back-to-school toolkit that's going to have some policy stuff in it. And I'm really interested in learning more about that because Kristen and I have been talking about school walker policies, but there's not a lot of like model examples out there. I'm really interested in seeing those toolkits as well. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
You know, talking about the levels, Jennifer, when I saw that, you know, I started thinking about the data center. When we put our assessments in Safe Routes to School data, and they have all these drop-down boxes, and they ask all the, you know, and that's sort of like level-related items. You know, they ask us all these things.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know, where does that go, or how is that used? Because that can almost compile schools automatically in a level area. You know what I mean? Because it asks if they have, you know, it asks all those details about do they do walk to school day, bike to school day, do they have the infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. So that's almost, you know, I wonder if that's something that could, you know, actually sort out schools as to, you know, how much they're participating. I mean, obviously it's there to ask that, but I haven't completed that, and I just haven't had a conversation around that, which I would be interested in seeing, you know, okay, how do y'all use that? How could that, you know, how could our putting information in there benefit us more? You know, what's it used for, et cetera. Do y'all know what I'm talking about?
Mary, which state was that? I forget.
In other words, when we put in our student travel tallies and our parent surveys, and we have to enter in a new school, it asks those types of questions like you would see on these level performance areas. Now, you know, I haven't ever had it explained to me or anything, so I'm just wondering if we can capitalize on that information somehow that they're asking for, and it's online, it's in a system.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, certainly if
if
it's online in the system, there would be we certainly have the ability to extract it for you. I'm trying to, and I apologize that Seth isn't here to explain this, because definitely that is his oversight.
I'll talk to him about it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that those two instruments try to do is understand whether the data is being gathered before any intervention begins, whether the intervention is underway, or whether it's post-intervention. So I do wonder if the questions are around that.
Oh, well, maybe. Okay. But
Well,
you know, that's the way to have an
Mary,
automatic sort of level system built into something, you know.
Well, I wonder about the active travel readiness ratings then, right? Because that's what we were trying to glean from that, is are schools just doing walk the school day? Are they doing more than that? Are they moving in a direction towards being more open to the idea of walking and biking?
So one of the things that we've done in a couple of counties is tried to build a matrix sort of for Safe Routes to School interventions and readiness. Basically, it's a 9-box matrix that on one axis is infrastructure. Either they have a lot or they have nothing, and then one in between. And then is there interest, whether it's full-throated interest on behalf of the principal or of the school and the parents, the community, or is there none? And so it's kind of still been informal, but both for Mecklenburg County and also Gaston County, we've tried to work this approach out so that people at both health departments in both those counties can look at a school and say, or even whether they're working with the school or not, and say, okay, this is the normal standard for Safe Routes to School programming that we might offer. It's not so much these are the programs or the strategies that they should do. It's this is where we might feel like we might have the most success, whether it's if they don't have any infrastructure at all, maybe it's we start off with walk at school programming or whatever, or just safe walking and biking, let's go and see curriculum. Or if they have a ton of infrastructure and a ton of interest and readiness, then we can offer the full range of, or a full slate of strategies, and they can pick whichever ones they want, and we'll help them work on it. So maybe a combination of what Mary is discussing and this sort of matrix approach might be more likely to be, I don't know, it ends up, you know, you gather information through a checklist, and then we place them in the matrix, or the state places them in the matrix somehow or other, or a matrix, and that gives you the tiers.
But what's the point of placing them in a tier? Is it because we think they would be excited to be recognized, or like what's the reason for it? Does it help you guys know how to work with them then, or?
Well, at least from our school, right. So from my point of view and the way that Gaston and Mecklenburg are kind of looking at it, it's we don't want to recommend something that they can't be successful with, and that they don't think would be valuable or safe. So we don't want to necessarily, or I should say, Gaston County Health Department staff and Mecklenburg County Health Department staff don't want to go into a school and propose something that the school can't be successful with, because it's not exactly a waste of the school's time, but it may be something that they might try once and fail at, and then say, well, this whole program sucks. So a lot of it is trying to figure out what would work for a particular school, but also, since, for example, Gaston County Health Department staff, they are really interested in active living, but they're not experts in Safe Routes to School programming, so they want to know what they can feasibly and successfully recommend to a school without having to be an absolute expert in it. So they're trying to get their feet on the ground with this approach in kind of a general way while the Active Routes to School program is still around, and be able to kind of compartmentalize what their strategies might be that would be helpful to the schools that they work with. And then for Mecklenburg County, just because it's such a huge school district, it's, you know, there's a huge range of what stuff might work in CMS or at CMS schools. And so it's probably as much of about an efficiency thing as anything else. So you don't want to spend your time giving out stuff for, you know, I don't know, I can't even think of an example. You just want to make sure that they want to make sure that they're the most efficient at doing their service provision that they can be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like people are more likely to listen if they see the different options they have to participate, instead of just saying, okay, well, here's a full program, and like you said, George, if they're not ready for it, then they're automatically just going to kind of be over it at that point. I think it's just kind of a thing to say, okay, if you can just walk 1 day a week, that's fine. We can start here, but you can always move forward and do more if, you know, you want. And also, once they get to the point where it's more sustainable, I know you guys were saying that you guys kind of lose interest or lose schools once the coordinator kind of backs out of it. So maybe with the tiers, it will give more structure to motivate them to continue even if the coordinator's not there.
Yeah, because even that, I'm thinking like that matrix, and I haven't seen it, it could be, you know, if we have resources, like if they could identify what's appropriate for them, then that could link them to a resource so that if we're not available or trying to sustain it, then they have it right there in front of them as well, rather than, I mean, we all know they appreciate when we come in and bring them all the information they need, and they don't need to do any research.
And I would add to that, I think something I've certainly learned, I'm sure all of us have learned over the years that we've been working on this program, is that when we, at least, well, I'll just speak for myself. When I first started, I was really enthusiastic about everybody could walk or bike to school, because I did it and because people do it all over, kids do it all over the country. And I think the Active Routes to School program differentiating itself by the additional focus on walk at school program for places where it's just not safe to do it, took me a little bit of getting used to. So, you know, there were a lot of places where, or a number of places where the initial conversation was, hey, this is about walking and biking to school, and you get those blank stares back at you. And it's like, yeah, right, not going to happen. But then I started leading sometimes with, or being more effective when I let off sometimes with, hey, we're all about physical activity for kids. And that includes walking and biking to school and walk at school programming and. Then the interest level picked up, because they realized that, hey, there's a lot of different strategies that allow for physical activity and fun for kids. And so that was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can do some of this stuff.
Yeah, because it's kind of the same. I've had a couple teachers that work with me now who did not in the initial 6 months to a year, and they told me that the reason that they didn't is because I always started, in my subject line was always active routes to school. But when I changed it, like you were saying, George, to physical activity opportunities, then they listened to me. They said that was a better approach for the region than to start off with active routes to school.
Wow, that sounds like a really important learning.
Yeah, you have
makes a lot of sense, certainly.
I was like, that's what, with this one woman, we work together all the time now, and she was like, you know, I just wanted to apologize for ignoring you the first year. I just read your subject line and read your first sentence and was like, oh, that's
Right.
not relevant.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
It sounds like,
I'm sorry, and you know it is those schools where they just are not interested in anything outside of their perimeter, which really has called attention to that, you know, walking during the school, the challenges. And I know that's not exactly, I guess, the real goal of Safe Routes to School programming, I guess, but to me, that's a real important, and that encompasses so many schools, you know, across the state, and that is something where I think a little kit would be, or just the resources, or the local examples of who's doing it and what it looks like. I think that's to me, that's a prime piece, just from a public health standpoint, and something that schools hopefully could work into their day if the kids are not, you know, getting much activity. So I'm interested in that walk app tool one too.
mm-hmm. Okay, I'm hearing a pause. So let me ask this. I'm trying to figure out how we recap and sort of where do we go from here. Certainly we had lots of conversation around encouragement kits, and George is going to email Aaron to find out a little bit more, and there are several of you who've said, yeah, let's team up and figure out what would be in those. And knowing who the vendors are would be really handy too. And Jennifer pointed out specifically that she was interested in the back-to-school toolkit, particularly because Aaron had mentioned that it would have some policy examples in it. And that also sort of led into this conversation around sustainability and relating sustainability to the partner levels. You know, is there a way that having these sort of set levels would help keep things going, even if you don't have coordinators specifically working in every region? So, you know, is there something to be learned from those developing maybe those different levels? And George talked a little bit about the matrix that he and others have been developing to better guide schools in presenting activities that would be appropriate for them based on kind of where they're at and what their situation is. And let's see here. And then we talked a little bit about, well, Leah made some really good points about framing and sort of how things are angled to schools. And I think this is something that several of you have probably learned along the way too, when we, you know, led off with the strong walk to school, bike to school. So many people just sort of said, oh, well, that program's not for us. And so broadening it was very helpful in that regard. Any other action items jump out at folks, or you want to go ahead and volunteer to move the ball forward on something?
Well, I know that Taylor and I already have discussed that we want to spend some time this summer in updating the toolkit that we developed. So if that's something that we want to make more broad, I mean, the information in it is fairly broad. It just has our contact information throughout it. So, I mean, I can give copies to the coordinators, and maybe if some people from other parts of the state would want to join our conversation to make it useful across the line as we update it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I would definitely like that. So until we all, I guess, come together and make a uniform, I guess, kit for everyone, which I guess that would probably happen more so maybe with our meeting in June, maybe something that we could talk about then when we're in person. But I think that would be helpful to see what you guys have already done and then alter it with our own contact information or make changes or.
Yeah, I'm interested, Leah, in being on your conversations with that, if this is possible or convenient.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think we can make it work. I mean, like we all know, there's no use to put a lot of effort into something that is going to be short-term and localized. I mean, it will be localized. I mean, I'm saying specific to our regions, but to make it more statewide, since we've already kind of started it, it will be easier to update it since we already have a base to say, oh, I don't want that. We need to add this.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a lot of comparisons to the west as there is in the east as far as the lay of the land other than the elevation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that we being HSRC, we've submitted our draft year-end evaluation, which is based off of the student travel tallies and parent surveys that y'all collect. And we've submitted it to Mary B. And so just also sort of in the coming soon category, as I think about that toolkit and I think about sort of the pitch that is made to new schools, you know, we're anxious to share some of the things that we have learned based on the data that y'all collect, because that might help inform kind of how you frame some things or how you sell them. So that's my teaser, so that y'all will attend when we do kind of a summary presentation for you. Anything else that we want to talk about today?
Well, thank you for having the call. It's been good, for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's always, yeah.
It was recorded, right?
Yes, that's why we did it with GoToWebinar.
Okay, so I'll go back later and listen to all the cool stuff I missed. Thanks.
Well, and I know Jackie
from the
was wanting to be sure that she heard it.
And I was just going to say for the coordinators for our meeting in June, maybe we can reflect back on this when we're developing our agenda items for that meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, great.
Nancy, I just wanted to give a quick plug for next Wednesday, June 7th, our webinar, 1 to 2. We'll be talking more about, we'll have Ed Johnson and George and Kristen Brookshire here at HSRC talking about infrastructure and how to talk to your communities about infrastructure. And I will be sending out a GoToMeeting link for you all to use for next Wednesday. We originally set it up as a webinar, but then we realized since it's just, you know, an internal group, it might be nice to have you all be able to talk. So we're going to set it up as a GoToMeeting instead.
Yeah, so looking forward to that.
What time is the webinar?
1 to 2 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Colleen. Perfect. Okay, well, if there isn't anything else, then I'm going to go ahead and say have a great weekend. I really appreciate y'all's time. I thought this was a great conversation and an opportunity really for, I learned a lot from talking to you all about sort of what's on your minds and how you're thinking about sustainability. So thank you for sharing your ideas. And I know that even more so, y'all were happy to hear from each other and how you might be able to work together. So that is awesome. That was the goal of the call. Mary B., anything you want to add before you jump off?
No, it was a really great call. I learned a lot as well, and just let me know what you need from me as we move forward with this.
Yeah, great.
Thank
Okay,
you for organizing.
thanks, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.